The key points that we have just learned. Howard Lutnick, who's the Commerce Secretary, spoke with Premier Ford of Canada. They had a conversation. They're agreeing to have a meeting here in Washington. And through the course of that, whether you call it a negotiation or a get-to-know-you session or a conversation, however they might characterize it, the result is, for the moment, Mr. Ford's pulling back the 25% tariff to American consumers, about 1.5 million. So that is certainly another wrinkle in what has been a protracted and difficult relationship between our closest ally in terms of physical property. And typically, the U.S. and Canada have had a very friendly, collegial, and helpful relationship for many decades. And it's now in a tense place where today, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, said it may even now be a competitive relationship, which is a way of ratcheting that away from friendship to talk about some of the tensions.
And Kelly, I understand a source with direct knowledge of conversations has told NBC News that Trump has been heavily focused on Canada today. With this change from Ontario, expect that to be the case for the rest of today? And have you heard any things in terms of White House reaction to just what the markets are doing, seemingly in response to all of the tariff back and forth?
Well, it's certainly hard to know how the president is spending his time going forward, but clearly he is concerned about Canada. He's expressed great interest in trying to make Canada the 51st state, described as not a joke, but an actual intention of President Trump to try to do that. Clearly, Canadian officials and citizens have been very clear about their desire to not see that happen. And obviously the markets, the world fallout, and all the other dimensions of a trade war certainly are prime on President Trump's agenda.
All right, Kelly O'Donnell with the latest. Thanks so much.
Let's bring in NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung. He is at the New York Stock Exchange. Brian, talk to us about this latest news and what we could see impact-wise on the markets. How big of an impact could these new metal tariffs have on American businesses and consumers?
Yeah, well, I mean, by the numbers, it's double the impact than it was originally slated to have, and that's because the original game plan, as scheduled for tomorrow, was going to happen anyway, was a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports into the United States. But now, with that announcement that that's going to get ratcheted up to 50% for any sort of steel and aluminum imports from Canada, then that would be twice as expensive for any importer in the United States to bring in those products, which, by the way, we bring in a lot when it comes to steel and aluminum. Canada, one of our biggest trading partners on that front, so that's why this is so substantial. What is interesting is that conversation that you were just having with Kelly when it comes to the dialogue between Ontario Premier Doug Ford as well as Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce in the United States, you do wonder if maybe it is on the table somewhere down the line to take down and lower the tariffs on steel and aluminum as well at some point. We'll have to see in the days to come.
And Brian, it really has been just back-to-back rough days for the stock markets. A lot of people would tell folks at home, okay, don't touch the 401k, maybe don't look at the stocks right now, don't touch them, but that's hard for viewers. So what should folks be thinking as they're seeing all this red?
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting so many messages in just the past few days. Oh my gosh, what do I do with my 401k? When it comes to retirement funds that are supposed to be a nest egg, the idea is you're supposed to be holding on to that long term anyway. If you pull it too early, there are tax implications to that. So the idea is just to set it and go away. Don't look at it. Don't get tempted, even though you see a lot of these headlines. But of course, there's a lot of concern that maybe down the line there could be perhaps a recession. You have the likes of Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase raising the odds of recession happening later on this year. But again, the idea here is that for long-term funds, even through recessions, generally broad-based index investing does tend to result in returns over the long run, so don't freak out necessarily. But yeah, certainly the stock market has its ups and downs, and there are more downs lately than there have been ups.
Brian,
about the long game.
Yeah, always. Brian Chung, thank you so much.
Authorities are continuing their search in the Dominican Republic for a missing U.S. college student who was there on a spring break trip.
20-year-old Sudiksha Kunanki was last seen on the beach this past Thursday, according to Dominican Republic's National Police. She's a junior at the